Well, welcome back to the rest of the Friday. Thank you, Sasha. Okay, so we're going to continue our limud behemshich Baruch Hashem in Hilchos Hashkamas Habayker Likutey Halachos. We're up to halacha. We're in halacha Aleph, and we're up to good days. We started off with the idea of the Arba Parshias that we read before Pesach. Okay, again, it's so interesting how Reb Nosson, each time he gives us an idea, it leads him into something new. For example, he talked about Avram Avinu. We know that the Yom Tov Pesach is a moon is Avram Avinu. So he said, let's talk about how did we get to Pesach. We'll talk about the Arba Parshias and how do they connect to our lesson as well. And that's what he's going to constantly do. That and it keeps it so interesting. Reb Nosson is always keeping it very, very interesting and bringing things into, making those associations. All right. So we spoke about Parshas. We spoke about the first one of the Arba Parshas, which is Parshas Shkolim, and it's the idea is the mitzvah of tzedakah, which is connected to Avram Avinu, which is the chesed. That's how we started, right? Well, Hashem, wow, that was an amazing trip. Anyway, and then when we do that, the tzedakah can lift us up from even the lowest places that we may have found ourselves into. Like he quoted the Navi Yeshaya, tzedek yikre'eyu l'ragla. Even if it would fall down into someone, anyway, even if the Nekuda type was so deep in by the feet, the akev, the heel, like we said, we said like this, the idea that, right now we're in the ikvis of the Mashiach. Everyone knows that, they hear these things. What is ikvis of the Mashiach? Ikvis is from the akev, it's from the heel. We're on the lowest realm of the guf, the makeup of the spiritual guf, so to say, right? We have the head, and we have the torso, the arms, right? And then we have the legs, right? And then we have the feet, but the heel is the lowest part. And that's the part that you don't really feel when you walk on, right? And that's the whole idea, the whole thing of today. People are just doing things they don't really feel because it's the ikvis, it's the heel. So they just do things. That's what we're trying to wake us up. So even if the person gives tzedakah and he finds that that's his nekuda, through that he can find his nekuda taiva, that'll be his springboard to bring the guy back up. Anyone have anything to say on that, or any questions? No. And then we spoke about Parshas Zachar, right? Parshas Zachar. What was the idea with Parshas Zachar? Is Parshas Zachar the same, I think, because the Amalek would stay in the back by Yezaneh Achara. He would stay. All the Jews that were not part, they didn't feel part with all the other Jews. They felt separated from the mainstream section of Jews. So they were the ones that were lagging behind, and Amalek would try to attack them by Yezaneh, like the tail, from the same lashon of the tail. At the end, he would come to attack them. But and then we said from there that again, when the person can find that nekuda taiva through the tzedakah, through the shkolim, and he can have that nekuda, so then he can get past that. All right, now we're going to talk about Parshas Parah. So that was the two we started with shkolim, and we started with Zachar. Now we're going to go to Parah, and we're going to do Parshas HaChodesh today also, Mitzvah Hashem. Okay? What's the answer?
Clarify?
Please, David.
But tzedakah helps reveal the nekuda.
Yes.
Somebody.
Yes.
So we give tzedakah to open something up.
Exactly. That's why right away after the Cheder Egel, the first thing we did was with the Mishkan was the Kamach Shekel, because again that was the means that we needed to get us out of that mind frame that we were no good and we were supposed to be destroyed. How are we going to be lifted up? Moshe Rabbeinu had to lift us up so that when we gave the Machzor Shekel, right, like we said, the Torah says that the poor person can't give less, the rich person can't give more. Everyone had to give an equal amount. It was an amazing idea. And it was the only mitzvah where the Torah says, if you don't have the money, sell your shirt. No other mitzvah does the Torah tell you to do that. If you don't have the means to do a mitzvah, you potter. Here, this mitzvah, Machzor Shekel, no. You borrow, you do what you have to, you make sure you give your Machzor Shekel. And again, the Torah didn't make it a crazy amount of money. It was a half of a shekel. It wasn't such a, It's not the value of Ashkolam here that we have today, right? So who knows? I'm not sure exactly how many. I'm not sure what the translation of value is, but it wasn't a lot of money, and that was the main point, that it was everyone can be part and parcel, is to lift them up. Okay, David. Okay, good. Okay, very good.
You were saying that the importance of breaking the Avera, right? Avera.
Yes.
So you try to do the mitzvah right away.
Exactly, right away. That's
break
Moshe
that.
Rabbeinu. That's what Hakadosh Baruch Hu commanded to do. Exactly. So again, like we'll say this again and again. Rav Nosson will never tell us, to do anything new. He's never going to give us, another chumrah. He's not going to tell us. He's just going to give us life in the things that we normally do anyway. That's what all these lessons are about. To put life into what we're doing, because we're living in that ikvus of the Mashiach, and we need an infusion of life. And that's what we're doing here. Okay, so let's go right now. Parshas Parah. V'achakach karam Parshas Parah. Shul bechinas tshuva. The whole idea of Parshas Parah is tshuva. How do you know that? He brings the Medrash Rabbah, very famous. Tova ima v'tikaneach al benah. So we know that whenever there's like the example is like this: is a beautiful palace, and the maid servant has her child there, and the child makes a mess on the floor. He urinates or whatever on the floor. So the mommy comes and cleans up the mess. So the whole idea with the paraduma was the egel hazav was the little baby, right? The egel is the baby para, right? The baby. So comes the paraduma to clean up the mess that the baby made. The baby was the egel. Mommy comes and cleans up the mess. Okay. Now ayadei nekudas tevis shemitzian ayadei zeh nichna hara, through again the nekudas tevis that we find, we can be machnia. We can subdue the ra, bechinas Amalek, which is Amalek that comes to try to. Amalek is the Yetzer Hara. Amalek is all bad. Kulei ra. Amalek is Kulei ra, and that's why at the end of time, Hakadosh Baruch Hu is going to eradicate Amalek for that reason. Okay, through that a person will come to tshuva. Zeh bechinas paraduma tamima. The paraduma had to be tamima, had to be tamim. Had to be complete. It can never have been used for anything. It has to be a very pure paraduma. I think they call it the red heifer, right? The heifer had to be so totally red. It could never have been used. It could never. Okay. Now the Rebbe says like this: paraduma tamima aduma do dina kasha. So there's an idea of dina kasha and dina rafia. Right, we know, like let's say when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, the first day of Rosh Hashanah is the din akasha, is a harsher judgment. The second day is the din rafia. That's the weaker judgment. That's where you have the where it actually plays out. So when it says here aduma, red is usually is hinting to sin, hinting to that's the din akasha. That's the difficult, the more stringent judgment. Tamima da dina rafia, but tamim is rafa, which is the lighter judgment, the easier judgment. When a person finds himself in a dina kasha, he finds himself in deep harsh judgment. Because there's a lot of ra in the person's life which is overcoming, which is trying to overcome him. That's dina kasha. That's dina kasha chas v'shalom. Where the Yetzer Hara just starts attacking the person. Good, and this, and what are you doing, and who you fooling, and what do you think you're doing here, right? All of that stuff. That's dina kasha. As I tzarich l'rapei sadid. So you have to. We'll use the word to sweeten that judgment. L'rapei means to heal, but in this case, you have to sort of say sweeten that. I still have a nekuda taiva. One thing I'd like to share with you. I see a lot of times, you go to people on Shabbos, right, and then they have challah, and we have salt, right? We're supposed to have salt always on the table, right? Because the mizbeach is daimed the shulchan is daimed to a mizbeach, right? The table is like a mizbeach, and there was always salt on the mizbeach, and that's why we're supposed to have salt. So you see, sometimes people, they don't know they take the challah and they sprinkle the salt on top of the challah. Now, okay, that's cute, but the whole point, what is the challah? The challah is chesed. The salt is din. So what we're supposed to do is we take the piece of challah and we dip it into the salt, which is sweetening the judgment. The salt is the judgment. But then if you take the salt and you sprinkle it on top of the challah, so now you have chesed, and you're putting a din on top of that. So listen, no one's doing anything wrong. Chas v'sholom. They have salt and they have their challah, and we malamid schus on all Jews. They're doing the best that they can. They don't whatever it is. But when we learn these, now we can understand what we're doing. We're trying to take. It's the same concept here, and I'm bringing it in. You take the what do you call it? The chesed that you have, and you dip the chesed into the din. That's what we're saying here. Ultimately, that's why I'm using that example. It's a muscle for the nimshal, what we're talking about. In other words, there's a terrible judgment going on in the person's life. That's like the salt, and the challah is like is a nekuda tova, and you sort of say dip that nekuda tova into it. So you sweeten up. You can lower the any questions on this? Anyone want to say anything?
So we're not salting the challah, we're sweetening the salt.
We're sweetening the salt, exactly. We're sweetening the judgment. That's what we're saying here. The para aduma, right? Tamima, right? So we're saying aduma is dinya kashya, that's the hard judgment. Tamima is the dinya rafia, right? Because it had to be tamim. So we're taking and by finding in the good taiva, we're sweetening the judgment of what was causing the problem to begin with. Yeah, you want to say, please?
So when I do hamotzi at my table, I sprinkle salt on the board.
Yeah.
And then I dip the challah in that.
Perfect.
Yeah. So here's my question: I've now sweetened the salt. Usually it gets brushed away. Should I be using that salt to salt my food for that meal?
Oh no! So that's an interesting thing. So there's an idea that when you cut the challah and there are crumbs on the table, besides those little crumbs, so a lot of people they make a point to eat those crumbs because that's those are considered also like the nekuda taiva, the things that were left, and there was things. So people, but these are all cute minhagim. You could use that if you want and sprinkle it on the sun. Why not? You can. There's nothing wrong with it. I was just trying to.
It's just the point of, if you've already sweetened the salt, then you're wasting it?
No. When you put it, it goes on the challah, doesn't it?
A little bit.
Okay.
But when you talk about you're sweetening the judgment, it seems to me
it's better salt now. It's better salt.
To me,
okay.
Hamal to waste, that judgment that's been sweetened.
So I'm saying, so a lot of people sweep that in and they put it onto their plate and they eat it with the, so you could do this. That's the point. The point I was trying to get to, though, is the fact that you have judgment and you have chesed, din and chesed, and just how it works, and that's connected to the nekuda taiva that we tried to sweeten. That was the only reason I brought that example. Okay. If Nassim doesn't bring it, I'm just always try to give you a muscle, something that we're doing anyway, how it fits into the lesson. That's all we're doing. Okay. But yes, please use it. But of course. Okay. Asher ein ba mum. Everyone have the place? Asher ein ba mum. Right. That's what we're up to. Asher loy ola aleha ol. That she could never have had a yoke on this. And those, like we said, the paraduma could never have been used for work. They couldn't put the yoke on it to plow a field or whatever, what have you. Yeah, nekuda taiva hi bechinas yoina tama she'ein ba shum mum. The nekuda taiva is like the dove, right? The yona tama, the pure dove, right? Because we said that the nekuda taiva again is something pure, right? And we said we used the example last time of the yona. Why? Because the yona has its mate, right? And the yona never leaves its mate. So that's the Jew with his neshama. That's the Jew's neshama with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, always together, always connected. All right? Because the nekuda taiva, that good point in us, the good points in us, that is like a pure dove. She'ein ba shum mum. That's what again Rav Nassim is trying to teach us, that it's pure. What we have in us is pure. The same way we have a beautiful little white dove. It's pure, it's clean, it's beautiful. So too is our Nekuda Taiva in us, is pure, white, and beautiful. Ki hi no v'yafa. It's very pleasing and nice, right? Bechina shechayra ani v'nava, like we quoted last time, shechayra ani v'nava. I may be black, but I'm still beautiful because, again, I have the Nekuda Taiva in me, and that's what makes me beautiful. All right, so let's see the next page. Everyone, the next page. Right, we got it now. Now we're going to go through the laws of the paraduma, and this was something that Shlomo Melech was very perplexed on. Right, he didn't understand. Again, Shlomo Melech understood everything. He mamish understood everything. He understood everything so much so. I was just on the trip with my Rebbe, Rabbi Kramer, and he was explaining something so wonderful. I'll share with you. He said that, the idea of the Even Shasiyah, right? The Even Shasiyah is the rock where everything was created from in the world. Shlomo Melech knew so much so of the understanding of the world. He understood the veins that come out of the Even Shasiyah, that runs all bracha and everything in the world comes from the Even Shasiyah. Everything started there, and all the blessing and everything is continually coming from the Even Shasiyah. So Shlomo Melech knew, like let's say he needed to plant tomatoes or he planted this, so he understood where the vein was going and where the best place would be to get that thing. He understood. You understand what I'm saying? He understood where, out of the Even Shasiyah, how things run to the world. He understood, let's say, the pipeline that comes from the Even Shasiyah for all the bounty and all the blessing to go throughout the world. And that's what Shlomo understood. He understood things like this, but he couldn't understand this paraduma because it's a chayk, right? We know it's a chayk, which is an ordinance. The same way, if you go to sometimes, there are these little hamlets, right? You have villages and hamlets. Right, so if you go to a little hamlet sometime, have you heard of a hamlet? These little tiny towns, a little hamlet. So they have strange laws in the hamlet, right? They have sometimes strange laws. You can't do this, and this, that. Unless you're part of the town, unless you're part of that hamlet, you don't understand what they're doing over there. It makes no sense. You do it, you're there, you have no choice, but you don't really understand. That's what a chayk is. It's an ordinance. There's no way we can understand that. But again, Rav Nosson here, and that's what Shlomo Melech couldn't understand that concept, because again, it's not something of human intellect that we can understand. Even though he understood all things of creation, he understood everything of this world. He understood how everything in all the bracha and everything came from in the world. He understood all of that. But he couldn't understand this because it's a chayk. It's something special. Ki zoysa b'china masha danis atzmai lekav schus. Wow, look at this. The fact that you can find the Nekuda Taiva, that Nekuda Taiva is metaya the Temeim. It purifies that which is impure. Umetame Tahirim, and it defiles that which is tahar. So you say to me, so wait a second, so how does that work? So I'll find the Nekuda Taiva in me, and then I'll be defiled. What am I doing? Watch. Ki mi shu b'madrega tachtayna tzarach daika limsaya zechus ba'atzmei k'dei shelo yipa legamrei chas v'sholom. A person that's in that low realm, and he fell to a low place, or maybe he never got out of that place. He's just starting, right? So this person needs something to be jolted. He has to be jolted, right? You have to use like a defibrillator for him. You need something. He has to be jolted, and he has to be woken up. So that's the Nekuda Taiva you need for this person. You need this where the purity will clean up the impure, right? Through this, specifically to that type of a person, and it can be to any of us. Because we all know that, even like we said, the Tanya says there are different parts of the days that a Jew finds himself. It's a tzaddik moment. He could find himself sometimes as a Beinani, and sometimes Chas V'Shalom he could find himself as a Rasha. We don't know. Even within one day, is that correct, David? Right, within one day, right? We're always experiencing all these things. Avamishu Tahar. But if somebody is a Tahar, he's a guy that's in the program, and he's doing what he's supposed to do. And in other words, he's in the program, and he's an Erlich Yid, and he's trying to learn Torah, and he's davening, and he's doing all the things that he's supposed to say. He feels that he's, I'm at a good level, I'm in a good place. This person will wind up being paigim himself or blemish himself by thinking he's okay. In other words, let me give you this example. A candle, right? We know in the neshama, right? When we want to remember a neshama, we light a candle. Why do we light a candle? What's the significance of a candle? A candle, if you look at it, it's always ray going upwards, but it's also jumping. A candle is never burning perfectly. A candle is jumping up and down. And that's showing the aliyahs and yeridus of a neshama, the people that we're going through. So in other words, if a person feels that he's on a low level and he never experienced anything, so you got to give this person anything he needs in order to get him started, to get him into the program. But then if you have a guy, now Rav Nosson is switching gears. Now if you have another guy that's doing the right thing in this, and he feels, I don't need any more. I'm okay. I know what I do. I have my routine that I do. I'm okay, and everything's okay. This guy can wind up having a pagam. Ki yipo legadlus chas v'shalom. He'll come to godless. He'll come to haughtiness. He'll look at other people and he'll look at this guy. You see, I can daven Shemay Esrei in 36 seconds, and you can't. See, I'm much better than you. I'm just using whatever. It's a silly examples. Okay, it's a silly example just to make you laugh, right? Okay, no, whatever. People will see that they're on such a level, and they'll look at others in another realm. And again, that's why we started off this whole lesson, is that you have to find the kudas taivas in everybody and in yourself. So when a person feels that he's low and he needs that nikud type, he has to do that chesed for himself, to lift himself up. But when he's lifted up, he can't, now he has to find the nikud type in everybody else and not to look down at anybody else. That's the main point. Gemara neither says that, right? If the whole world tells you, you're a big tzaddik. People do that to you. You call them, tzaddik, how you do it? Okay, so the whole world is telling you tzaddik. Givaldik, that's a wonderful thing that people perceive you as a tzaddik. That's a wonderful thing. But the Gemara says that you're supposed to see yourself as kirasha. Not a Rasha, kirasha. Like a Rasha, kirasha. Why kirasha? Because again, if the person feels that he's a tzaddik and he's doing everything, so he feels good about himself, and then he'll come to haughtiness, he'll come to the things, the godless, which is not what the Rebbeinu Shalom wants from him. All right? Any questions on that? Any comments?
Can you just explain how it goes back to the Matame Taha or Matahar Matame?
Yes, because, so perfect. When the person has the Nekuda Taiva within him, which is the Tahar, which is purifying the Tameh, right? It purifies the tummy. So now the purity becomes, so to say, nifgam, right? It becomes paigam, and the one that was impure is now pure, right? That's the way it works. Right. So if the person has the nekuda taiva in him, he uses that to purify himself. But now once he comes pure and he's in the right program, now wait a second, buddy. Just remember. You're in the program. HaKadosh Baruch Hu did a big chesed with you, and He helped you to come to where you are now. Don't think now. Just remember, if you're gonna be machzik yourself, you're gonna feel that your mom is such a good guy, you're gonna become tameh. You're gonna become tameh. So the two spectrums. In other words, you need the nekuda taiva in order to lift the person out of whatever he is. But then once he's on the program, he has to understand that he has to keep himself in check. Okay, and that's what the big tzaddikim can do. The big tzaddik, we're going to learn in a minute. I'll just tell it to you now. We'll just give you a preview. That a tzaddik understands what's the point in going to tzaddikim and the teachings of the tzaddik. Because a tzaddik will show the person he can find the person that's low, that needs help, and he'll build that guy up tremendous. He'll build him up tremendous, and he'll make him feel great. So that way the person can find those nekudas taivas and lift the guy up. But then it could be sometimes the tzaddik meets someone that's mamish a good guy. He's on the program. The tzaddik will show him that really you could do a lot better than you're doing. You could do a lot better than you think you're doing okay. You think you're learning this. You think you're doing this, these mitzvahs. You could be doing a lot better. And that's what the tzaddik can do. He can help us. He can help us sometimes. And that's the greatness of the tzaddikim. He sees the level that the person's in. He can see it in the neshamas, right? So that way the tzaddik can help the person and advise the person when he needs a nekuda taiva. He needs something, and because he's tameh, he needs to be matar, so he'll use that nekuda taiva in the person to lift him up. But then when the guy is in the program and he feels that he's what they say, like from the Heifer defense, he's the knacker, right? So this guy is a problem of gaiva. And so then he needs to be put back down, and that's what okay. Does that excel?
Yeah, but it's not the Nekuda Tova Chas v'Shalom that's Matami.
No,
it's
no Chas v'Shalom. No,
it descended sort of in your.
No. It's we're dealing with the person now.
Right. He's
switching now to the person, the perspective of the person. Not Chas v'Shalom. The Nekuda Tova always stays pure. Right. Like we said, it's a yoina tama. It's pure. It's pure. It's just giving us again, Rav David. These are all ideas to help anybody that's learning. Rav Nassim really wants us to get this concept because he said this is a very, very important concept, perhaps the most important concept to keep a person happy and healthy during his life, and to understand he's going to have these ups and he's going to have his downs. And that's the whole point in life. You understand? So that's what it's all with the program. But it's just using different mitzvahs because some people are, connected to different mitzvahs and they'll mean more to them. So nothing is really just going on a broad spectrum. Okay? But no, like you said, David, Chas v'Shalom, nothing ever goes wrong with the Nekuda Taiva. That's always pure. We established that already. Okay. Well, this is interesting stuff. Okay. That's why the Gemara teaches us, you say kirosha. I'm like a Rasha, but never anyone can be machzik himself as a Rasha. Why? Because we said even a Rasha is molei mitzvahs kiriman. And if the person's molei, if the person is a Rasha, he feels it's Rasha, but we know a Rasha, a wicked one, is like a pomegranate that's loaded with seeds, loaded with mitzvahs. So how can the Rasha be a Rasha anyway? Because even the Rishayim, Chazal tell us they have their mitzvahs. So they're not really Rishayim. They're not really. So that's why a person has to feel himself like Kir Rasha. He's like a Rasha. Ki also lahaksik it's atzmai l'Rasha Gomer Chas v'Shalom, because you can never feel that the person's a Rasha Gomer. Chas v'Shalom. Rak adarabba ki should nivne loishu Rasha Gomer Chas v'Shalom. Here we go. This is the point of when a person feels in his own mind that he's mamish a Rasha Gomer, he's about to throw the towel in, and he says, "Listen, what am I going to do? I'm lost. I did this thing wrong. I did that thing wrong. I lost my oil. I'm going to go to Gehenna. So if I'm going to Gehenna anyway, why should I put on tefillin today? Why should I bother keeping Shabbos? I'm going to Gehenna anyway. Who cares?" That's the point. When the person is in that place and he needs to be jolted out of there, he felt he did something. He's a Gehenna. He thinks so. So why should I bother doing anything? But that's the whole point, and that's what I'm not trying. And look what we're dealing with today in today's generation, right? So many kids, right? They're in a house, and then the parents are sometimes very, very harsh on the children, right? And because they think that the kid is, could do better and this and that, but they don't build up the kids, and that's the whole point, is to build everyone up today. You have to build everyone up when they're in that level, to build up the kids and not to be judgmental on the kids, chas v'shalom. Just show the kids how good they are. show them how all their good points, and that'll help them, get much better and better and better, not being judgmental. Right? Okay, that's the point here. Adrab, shenidva like kishu Rosh Gomer Chazom, afilu ima emesu kach chas v'shalom. Even if it's really true, right? The guy's doing things he shouldn't do. The guy's involved in things he shouldn't do. Even if that's true. Even still, you have to find inside of you that Nekuda Teva is something good. Gomer, because we can never ever be a Rosh Gomer. No Jew is a Rosh Gomer. We have to understand that all Jews are special. V'amech kulam tzadikim. The Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, v'amech kulam tzadikim. Doesn't say what level tzaddik we're on, but everyone's on a level of tzaddik. And again, and then like we know, Sefer Beinim. But the Mishnah says, V'yamech kulam tzadikim. So we'll just go with that for a moment, okay? Okay. Through that he finds that Nekuda Teva, he'll purify himself, he'll come to tshuva, and then v'zeh bechinas metar temeim metame tahirim, and that's what it means. It's metame temeim. It's metar temeim. That's what the Nekuda Teva will help and lift up the other guy and bring him to tahara. And mitame tarim, those that are machzed themselves as being such great people, they'll get knocked down by that unless they understand that there's so much more that they can accomplish. Should we go a little further? We should start Parashat Chodesh, or we have to go?
Have to go.
Okay, so we'll stop over here. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Shkoyach, everybody.